Hi, hello, new camera angle. What dis? Well, you clicked on the video, so you already know what dis. So I just got back from the FNaF movie. Focus, camera. Focus. Alright, well, I just got back from the FNaF movie. I am not going to say whether or not this will be spoiler free or not, as I did not script this, because that would have required more time and effort. I'm not good at either of those. So, I thoroughly enjoyed the FNaF movie. It had, I feel like, the correct amount of plot. I know that's been one of the main problems some people have been having, is the ridiculous amount of plot, supposedly, but I feel like it had the correct amount. I don't know what they meant by it having too much. My guess is the people who said it had too much plot also haven't gone through any of the games, and I know that I'm not necessarily the one that should be talking, given that I've only technically played through 4 of the games, and the first 4 games, and a little bit of Security Breach. I do intend to rectify that, most likely on the channel, especially since the only versions of the games that I played through are the mobile versions. So, I did also play a little bit of FNaF World, but I have read through the main series of books, the main trilogy, as well as most of the first set of the Fazbear Frights. So, that being said, it follows the plot more of the books than of the games, which makes sense, right? Because the books are already a thing. It follows the main trilogy more, but with some parts of the game. There's also a lot of, like, subtle hinting and nods, and my hair's doing whatever it is it's doing today. There's also a lot of, like, little smaller things. I would say it has the correct amount of fan service, and by that I mean they did have fan service, but it wasn't in a way that it was intrusive. So, for instance, MatPat Game Theory is one of the parts of the movie, but he is not directly related to the plot. He just appears long enough for you to go, hey, that's MatPat, and then he leaves. And I've always thought that was the correct way to do fan service, because that way it's not directly in your face, but it's still there. That's always kind of how I felt they should do. That's always how I felt they should do that, is have it as like a side thing. So, those of you who already have been following, which I assume if you made it here, you're already kind of in the know of the FNaF stuff, because I'm not a FNaF YouTuber, and thus normally you wouldn't be here. But, like, the most of, if not all of the employees of the month board are all different FNaF YouTubers. So Razbowski and Dawko, and I think both of the Ryans, and Fusion, and I feel like there's like all of them. Well, not all of them. I'm not going to say all of them, but most of the bigger ones. And that's fan service, but it's not obvious and in your way. The other kind of fan servicey thing is, so I don't think this counts as spoilers, but like I said, I'm going to probably label this as potential spoilers, as this is the second day of its release. So, the cupcake has never been officially given a name. It's always just been referred to as the cupcake, Chica's cupcake, or Mr. Cupcake. I think in the movie they tend to refer to it as Mr. Cupcake. and the person that Mr. Cupcake kills is named Carl, because the fan name that everyone gave the cupcake was Carl. Little subtle hints of foreshadowing that I thoroughly enjoyed. The guy stuttering over saying Mike's full name because he recognizes the name before offering him the job. Little things are... I mean, I am not a film critic. I don't go into films to be critical. I go into films to enjoy them. So I'm going to get that disclaimer out of the way. I'm probably not the correct person to be necessarily giving a full review. Why is there a big red streak right there? Is that one of these? Ah, there it is. Okay. Sorry, I got thoroughly distracted because I just noticed that huge red streak, and I wasn't expecting it to look that large, because in real life, the charm is like an inch big, but on camera, it's like we're going to take up a distracting amount of the screen and to look like blood dripping from the ceiling, which I suppose is adequate. I suppose makes sense for this review. So, there's like, one of the characters is wearing a shirt that has a screenshot from one of the mini games. Little things, there's a bunch of fan-made but technically official merchandise in the prize counter, because, like, I know Hex is in there. I saw Hex. I think I might have seen something from Cloaked, but I'm not 100% sure. And they finally gave Freddy a voice, which I feel like they kind of had to. All of the characters now have voices. Before, I think Freddy was the only one actually kind of missing a voice. But, like, the ending song as the credits are going is The Living Tombstone. They got licensed to use that, which I feel like was the correct choice, because that was one of the first FNaF fan songs to be made. I'm going to try to avoid too much plot, but the plot follows the plot follows the books more than the games, which the games, let's be fair, at least the first one didn't have a huge amount of plot. It was all, like, hidden in secrets that you had to find and stumble across. But there's also, like, little bits of things that kind of reference the newer games. Security Breach. So one of the big things that kind of reference that is the whole Vanessa situation, which I feel like is going to end up being brought up a lot more frequently, because there's a lot of lore implications about that, and I'm not a theorist channel, so I'll let the people who know what they're doing go about that. I may or may not start putting out random little mini theories. I have a small pile of random little mini theories, similar to the Lefty and Nightmare Connection thing, where I'm good at finding things that seem like they should matter, but not figuring out where they go. But I did, in fact, thoroughly enjoy the movie. I am highly disappointed that our cinema had literally no FNaF merchandise. None. Cinemark is really, really bad at getting in movie merchandise tie-in stuff. Like, they didn't even have the pizza boxes. And the pizza boxes, I would think, would be the most basic and cheapest thing to get in, because they're cardboard. And they didn't even have those. So, if you're looking for the FNaF movie merchandise that was supposed to be released during the movie. Do not go to Cinemark. However, the one thing that Cinemark did have that I haven't seen other people, like, posting about was a little mini, like, scene, I guess, from the pizzeria, where they had, like, the cardboard cutout of Bonnie and Freddy in a little corner of the pizzeria with, like, the poster and all of the little drawings and stuff. And pay attention to the drawings, because if you know the books, then you know that the drawings are very important. I do appreciate how they tied in the plot with the more human element to go along with the animatronic plot, and how they managed to make those two things work together. Because when they introduced the human plot, because that's the first part of the plot that you're introduced to, I was slightly concerned about how they were going to handle the robot part and the lore behind that, but at least in my opinion, they did that fairly well. I don't want to do too much spoil stuff, because this is only the second day of its release, and I'm not the kind of person that wants to mess that up for anyone. So I'm going to try to leave it at very minimal talking about plot, but I do need to discuss how absolutely amazing the animatronics were. So I had already known that they were going to be good, because I had already watched Dawko's, and I think Raz put out his behind the scenes videos, and they already looked amazing. But in the movie itself, with the movement that they give, they look like you pulled them out of the games, which is what everyone wanted, right? Everyone wanted it to look like you just grabbed the characters out of the games and put them on stage. And that's what they look like. There are some random bits that don't make a huge amount of sense, like, and again, I feel like this is a little bit more of a reference to many of the Fazbear Frights books, because in the Fazbear Frights books, there's a strange reoccurring plot line of, and now one of the animatronics is at your house. And we're not going to explain how that happened. There's also a strange lack of Golden Freddy actually existing. It did kind of end the way basically everyone assumed that it was going to, in William Afton having his comeuppance and also always coming back, and he did say the thing, so we have that. I don't know how else to say that I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. And also not go into spoilers. The spring Bonnie costume that they made, though, was also very good, but it was strangely put together, which I'm assuming the reason for that is because of them wanting to have room to decay it for the next movie, because obviously the ending of this movie is like, and there's potential for a sequel, because every movie does that now. It's really, really hard to not go into plot, which I was not expecting. But I'm going to say if you are a fan of the franchise, and I do mean if you've gone through and done the books and stuff too, the only problem I think with them using the books as more of a basis is that it makes the series of events somewhat predictable unless they choose to make the second movie not based off of this next book. Which they could very well do. They might have just used the books as a kind of thing for the first one to get a basis. And they do kind of hint that they're going to base the game, or the next movie, off of FNaF 2, which tells me that it's likely going to be a prequel. And the way they do this is very subtly through the end music. After they're finished playing the Living Tombstone, if you listen closely, they play a slowed down version of the Marionette's music box. My Grandfather Clock is what that song is called. They play a slowed down version of that as the end credits after they're finished with the Living Tombstone, which kind of hints that either one, we're going to FNaF 2, which would make sense, right? Because it's a trilogy, and Scott had initially said that the third game was going to be the last one, so. Or, at minimum, it hints that the Marionette is going to become important. Which, I mean, would also make sense, right? Because the Marionette has been important this entire time, at least in the gameplay. Or at least in the game lore. So, I highly look forward to seeing where the movie goes. I'm sure, because obviously this has been my first watch through. However, I do have Peacock, so I wanted to make sure to support to support the movie, at least the once, by going to it in the movie theater, but also be able to watch it at home. So I wanted my first experience with it to be in the theater. That's obviously why I didn't watch it yesterday when it came out on Peacock. I'm sure I'll have more details and stuff as I see them as I watch the movie again on Peacock, because I'm certain I'm going to watch the movie again on Peacock. That's just going to happen. So, I might do a more spoilery version of this in a couple weeks, maybe closer to Christmas. That way it gives everyone a chance to watch it, obviously. Everyone that wants to watch it will have watched it by Christmas. I feel like that's just a given. And by then I'll have watched it probably a couple more times, and thus I'll have probably noticed a few more things. And I'm going to try to not do what a lot of the other reviewers do, in which they literally just review the... Because I'm not a reviewer, right? I mean, it could be. I'm going to not be. What I enjoy doing is pointing out connections between this and the books and the games, and also connections between the... So that's probably what I'm going to do whenever I do this again. Because, well, that's what I do. I'm going to end up rereading the books, most likely on this channel, because one of the things that I intend to do is start doing an audiobook series with art in the background. So I'm going to be reading the books. I'm going to be reading the books with the with art being drawn in the background. Oh, that's a thing that happened that I almost forgot to bring up. I need to look that up.
Well, my friend.
Because I don't remember what it was called. So there's an extra animatronic, and I say extra kind of hesitantly. They have a lot of random little Easter eggs, like I said, to the books. They kind of vaguely reference one of the old FNaF 1 theories or hoaxes in which people used to say, oh, there's a dog animatronic. If you look really closely at the in the room, there's a dog animatronic, and so they kind of vaguely reference that by having a dog animatronic costume, or at least it looked like a dog animatronic costume, wearing like a red collar with a bone. But there's this, one of the Springlock costumes vaguely looks like one of the dolls from one of the FNaF books. FNaF, I think it was called 6 a.m. And was it called 6 a.m.? Story. So, apparently that's not what it's called. I don't remember what it's called though. Was it 4 a.m.? So in the there's a story in one of the FNaF Fazbear Frights books that has this doll that, I should have looked this up beforehand. There's this doll in one of the FNaF Fazbear Frights books. It's 1:35 a.m. The cover of that book, there's a reference to it. I should probably, I'll probably show once we do the more spoily review. But it looks exactly, the Springlock suit looks, I'm not going to say exactly, but very similar to the doll on the cover of the 1:35 a.m. Fazbear Frights book. It's Fazbear Frights number 3. And it's the main kind of thing for the first story of the book. And I'm wondering if that means they're going to try to bring in more of the Fazbear Frights stuff. Because that's kind of what it looks like. So that's going to be interesting. So, and like I said, I'll end up showing that cover along with a comparison to the Springlock suit when I do the spoily review. Because quite frankly, I did notice a lot of things that kind of seemed to reference some of the Fazbear Frights book too. So that's going to be a fun video. Look forward to that. I feel as though I have rambled enough. So we are going to log off and go watch the movie. Do not let the fact that a bunch of people have been saying the movie is not that good affect whether or not you choose to see it, because the problem is that movies are subjective, and just because other people don't like them doesn't mean you won't. So if you think that you want to watch the movie, especially if you are a fan of the especially if you're a fan of the book series, even if you're not necessarily as much of a fan of the games, but you do like the books, it follows, like I said, the first trilogy fairly. It follows, well, I'm not going to say it follows the book, what's quite frankly, the book series is a little bit ridiculous, but it follows specific and somewhat important random plot points of the book, especially when it comes to the drawings have the power, which I think is actually a line from both the book and the movie. So, that's the thing. Just, if you want merchandise, don't go to Cinemark, because even the employees at my Cinemark said that the problem is that Cinemark doesn't like to get things for, especially not for horror movies, because people tend to not like to go to the horror movies as much, and I'm like, what are you talking about? So yeah, that is all of the things. Go watch the movie. If you can't go to the movie theater, or you don't want to go to the movie theater because you're still afraid of the plague, which I don't fully blame you there, to watch it on Peacock. If you have Peacock. Wow, okay, I have the hiccups. Alright. Watch it on Peacock if you have Peacock. Watch the movie. The movie was very, very good. There's a lot of very subtle things that you notice as you watch it, and I'm sure I will find more as I watch it more, because that's how that works. It doesn't rely as heavily on jump scares as you would think, given that the game relies almost exclusively on jump scares, which I highly appreciate, because that means I can have my boyfriend watch it, because he doesn't like jump scares, but the movie doesn't rely on jump scares. So, that'll be fun. I'm not going to force him to watch it if he doesn't want to, but I am going to recommend that he does. After all, he is going to be forced to listen to the books as I read them. All I have to say is I do desperately hope that they don't follow all of the Fazbear Frights books, because, let's be honest, some of the Fazbear Frights books are ridiculous. Gonna be honest. They will make for some fun artwork, though, when I do inevitably end up drawing them. So there's that. It will be very unique fan art. That being said, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for listening to me ramble for... Holy carp, it's been 30 minutes? Doesn't feel like I've been rambling for 30 minutes. Anyways, toodaloo.